Welcome everyone. Really glad to have you join us for this webinar on HSC Study Skills with Edrolo. My name is Bez and I taught Year 11 and Year 12 Science for 9 years. So I've literally seen it all, the tears, the panic, the joys around exam time. So I'm really here to shed some light on what works for students. So what will you get out of today? To start with, we're going to learn how to memorize information quickly over long periods of time. We're going to learn how to apply our understanding and maximize marks on exams. And we'll also have a look at some tips to kick procrastination, stay motivated, and wisely use our time. We'll also have some time at the end of the session for a little bit of Q&A. So we're going to start off with learning and remembering content. Why is this important? Well, it frees up brain space for other things in the middle of your exam. Take, for instance, your English exam essay, where you'll have to use quotes from your book. If you're struggling to remember a quote you half remember, not only does it waste valuable time, but it also means that your brain is so preoccupied with trying to remember something that it actually isn't thinking critically about the prompt, remembering your mental plan, or even checking your written expression. So give me an emoji reaction. You can do it on the top bar. If you've ever put the same amount of time into studying as someone else, but then you got a different result. You can do a thumbs up or yeah, yep. It can feel pretty frustrating, right? And the reason why this happens is because of the study strategies that we use. So some common but actually ineffective ways to study are rereading your notes. So this can be the textbook, PowerPoint slides. It can be rewriting your notes. I was guilty of this. I always use 5 different colored pens, and if it wasn't perfect, I'd rip out the page and start again. Cramming, say no more. We've all been there. So the reason why these are ineffective is because there's no or low levels of thinking that's actually required when we do this. Low levels of thinking while you're studying, it means that information is actually unlikely to be encoded in your long-term memory. If it's unlikely to be encoded in your long-term memory, it's going to be a lot harder to remember. So now that I've said all of that, what I'm trying to say is compiling information, it's not the same as studying. Compiling information is just a way to prepare you to study. It's figuring out what you need to memorize. And look, I know this is a really bold claim, but we'll have a look at the scientific model of memory and understand exactly why this is the case. So here we have our model of memory that I am blocking, but we're going to have a look at 2 types of memory in this model here. So we've got our working memory here and long-term memory. I won't go too scientific on you. But when you first pay attention to anything in your environment, for example, it could be the notes that you're rereading, this information is transferred to your long-term memory, your working memory. Now, your working memory, it can only hold a limited amount of information and actually only up to 30 seconds it can hold that information. After 30 seconds, there's 2 things that can happen to the information. One of it is you forget the information, or it moves to your long-term memory, which means that you've learnt the information. So now that we've talked about working memory, let's test your working memory. You're going to need something to write your results down with. What I'm going to do in this quick experiment is I'm going to flash a series of letters on the screen, and your goal is to remember as many letters as possible in the order that they're presented. I'm going to flash it for 15 seconds, and here's some rules. You can mentally or verbally repeat the words, but you cannot write them down, so don't cheat. Ready? We've got a question. If you've got a question, you can pop it in the chat. We've got 10 more seconds to remember all the letters in the correct order. All right, time's up. I'm going to give you 30 seconds now, and I want you to write down as many letters as you remember in the order that you saw them. Off you go. You've got 15 seconds left. All right, what I'm going to get you to do is now compare it to the actual answer and see how many letters you've remembered in order. We've got a poll coming up. Here we go. I'm interested to know, put your results in. And Steph is going to help me out by letting me know what's the general results that we've got.
Ooh. Two people that got 20 to 28. That's very impressive. You've got some.
We got some super memory people in here.
Even split kind of across the board, which is interesting.
Very interesting. All right. What I'm going to do is we're going to do another experiment again. So the same letters, but this time it's going to look a little bit different. Don't forget the same rules apply. You need to remember the letters in the order that they appear. No writing them down. You can verbally or mentally repeat them in your head. I'm going to give you about 15 seconds. And then once that's up, you're going to write down as many letters that you remember. Okay, ready? Here we go. Got 5 more seconds. All right. How did you go this time? I'm going to put the words, oops, I cheated. Write down as many letters that you remember in the order they appeared. I helped you out, so you should get more this time. You got 5 more seconds to write down as many letters that you remember. All right. These were the answers I didn't mean to show you earlier. You can mark yourselves and then put in the poll. How many letters did you remember? And disclaimer, if you got the word BMW, that counts as 3 letters. And Steph is going to let me know your poll results.
Okay, so a much higher percentage in the 15 to 19 range this time.
Very nice.
The scattered results of last.
Okay. So I'm interested to hear, it should have been easier this second time around. Can you put in the chat for me, why do you think it was easier the second time around to remember the letters that I showed you?
Because it was broken up was one response.
I love that. So into more manageable chunks, it's separated. We've all picked up on the theme. Love that. Fantastic. Oh, someone put it was chunked info. Oh, very clever. So the reason why that second time around was easier to remember each of the letters is because of a process called chunking. Chunking is where we group individual pieces of information into more larger, meaningful groups. And what that means is it's easier to remember. It's a hack, basically, that we can use to remember more information. That's why you can remember more I've blocked every single font in here the second time around than the first time. So what does this actually mean in reality when you're trying to study, or what does that look like? Well, make your own acronyms, songs, and rhymes or associations. A really common one that we've all heard of growing up is I before E except after C. Still use it now. I've put 2 examples here as well, but if you have a look at this example, if I'm doing chemistry and I'm trying to remember the definition for oxidation and reduction, this is 10 pieces of information I have to remember. If I use this oil rig acronym, well, now it's 2 pieces of information. 2 versus 10, well, 2 pieces of information is a lot easier to remember. One of the most effective strategies to revise is through active recall. So I'm interested to hear, give me a thumbs up reaction if you've heard of this term before, or give me a surprise if this is the first time you've heard of it. Nice, love that. Fantastic. So active recall, as you can see here, it's a process where we learn best because we take stuff out of a brain rather than putting it in. You can practice active recall by using flashcards, practice questions, making notes so long as they're closed book for both of these, teaching someone else from memory, and doing practice tests or exams. I'm keen to hear, put in the chat, have you used any of these before? And if so, which ones? And why did you find it helpful? Put a thumbs up. Love that.
People typing. So.
Give you a minute to type your answers. So the question was, have you used any of these? Why was it helpful?
It is like chunking to Noah says, which what a great answer.
Thanks, Noah.
Someone else's, a couple of other people are typing, so maybe we just give them a second. Practice questions, closed book, and timed can help as it stimulates exam conditions.
Oh, that is a great answer. Thank you, Ryan.
One more person's typing. Come back to them.
Okay. So think of it this way. The reasons why these strategies are effective is each time you're trying to retrieve information, it's pretty much like someone cutting through the park, right? The more often that you do it, the more clear that the path is in the park, or in terms of remembering information, the more easier and the more quickly we can retrieve that information. So for example, when I make notes closed book, so this means without any prompts, such as PowerPoints, textbooks, or images, I'm actually forced to rely on what is actually in my long-term memory rather than regurgitating the information that is in front of me.
Can I just, someone
Yes.
put in the chat a really awesome response. They said teaching someone else because you need to explain the concept in a way where the other person can understand.
Ooh,
it's really good.
that is a
Great
very
strategy.
Insightful answer. Thank you for sharing that. So on top of that, we can supercharge active recall by doing it again and again repeatedly over time. So this process is called spaced repetition. So why exactly does this supercharge your exam prep? As you can see here on this graph, the black line indicates how much we remember over time if we don't review any of the information. So you can see that by day 30, right, I can only remember 20% of the information I originally learnt. The more that we review the information at spaced intervals, so no cramming, the more we can remember, which you can see here on each red line. So you can see that if we review the content 3 times, by the 30th day, I actually remember 90% of the original content compared to 20% if I didn't review it at all. Basically, the more that we practice spaced repetition, the more likely you're going to be able to remember the information. Pull it out of your brain rather than putting it in. So, have you ever felt like you knew the information only to get an assessment back or an exam back and then not get any marks on the assessment? Give me an emoji react. This was the story of my life when I was in high school. Yeah. I'm glad some of you feel me. Yeah. So this next section is going to help you out because honestly, memorization is all well and good, but it's nowhere near as important as deeply understanding the content and then applying it to unknown situations or questions. So let's have a look at how you can maximize your marks on exams. Now, is Edrolo a magic bullet? Of course not. I'm not saying that, right? But most of you hopefully do already have access to Edrolo, so it would be a massive waste not to use it. You've got super experienced teachers that are on there. They step you through all the content which is aligned to your syllabus dot points. So it's all the content that potentially you could be assessed on. So I'm not sure if you know or if you've used them before, but there's hundreds of exam style questions on the platform. These questions, they're pulled straight from previous HSC exams, or they've been modified so they're very similar to the questions that you'll see in your HSC exams, right? The more that you practice with these HSC exam style questions, the more confident and the more familiar you'll be at understanding exactly what the question is asking you and how you get to the answer so that you can get full marks. You'll get a lot of support as well once you do these practice exam questions. We've got exemplar answers, marking guides, video solutions with tips as well from the examiners to help you understand exactly how to answer a question effectively. Just a quick tip as well. If you're interested in leveling up your practice exam questions, if you don't feel confident, start them by doing it timed with your notes and then move to timed conditions with no notes.
Can I just share something else?
Absolutely.
Someone's just put in the chat saying that they haven't used the exams yet, but a friend of theirs has said that it's really useful for abbreviations, e.g. Charles vomiting twice for a chemistry equation. I love that.
That is fantastic, and I want to find that now.
And someone else said that all their friends love the practice exams.
Yay! We love that. So this is everything that I was saying before. These tools that you have when you do the practice exams, you can take advantage of these support tools to really help you understand how to interpret what the question is exactly asking you, how you're supposed to respond to it, and where exactly each mark is allocated. Each time that you do this, the more easier, the more confident you're going to feel. There's also a bunch of intuitive features as well. You've got annotated, non-annotated notes. You can bookmark chunks as well, share these with your friends, help someone out. You can also rate your understanding, so a bit of self-reflection to understand where you're currently at with understanding the content. So, you know what? Shrek once said that ogres are like onion. They have layers. Well, guess what? Learning is also like onions. It has layers and it has stages. You're probably moving back and forth between these stages. So learning the content, applying the content, refining it. Regardless of where you're at in your stage of learning while you're doing your exam prep, Edrolo can really help you target each stage of your learning. And I've once again blocked it. So 2 final tips to maximize your marks when you're doing your exams. When you're feeling overwhelmed or you don't know where to start or you've lost focus, pull out the syllabus dot points, have a look at what's on there. What is explicitly listed there is going to help you focus on what you need to revise. Next, have a look at what comes up in marking guides for past exams. By having a look at these marking guides and past exams and reviewing the answers, it's going to give you an idea of what to expect and what specifically the markers want when you're responding to the questions. So now for a little bit of a change, let's talk about motivation, time management, and procrastination. Here's the 2 major problems I see: overscheduling, which is taking on too much in a time frame, and procrastination. And generally, we procrastinate because it feels completely overwhelming because we've overscheduled ourselves. This is the story of my life. The resolution to both of these is quite similar. So here's some quick time management fixes for you. The first one is use a diary or a calendar. It doesn't matter what format it's in, but use it to plan your time and specifically how you're going to study. A good tip as well is schedule time in for leisure. So what this means is, have you got a part-time job? Have you got an 18th birthday on Saturday? Put that in, because realistically, you're not going to miss that, right? Once you put all of these things in, you can have a look at your weekly schedule and go, oh, actually, I'm out all of Saturday, so I'm going to have to spend a bit of extra time on Thursday and Friday. We're being realistic here, right? I also recommend that you do some experimentation, figure out which periods in the day that you work best. For some students, it might be really early in the morning before school. For some, it's after school and right before dinner. Knowing what time of day you study best leverages your time to study. The other thing as well is, when you're scheduling, don't make task-based to-do lists. Believe me when I say everything takes a lot longer than you think. Daily to-do lists, they can be a recipe for unfulfilled expectations and disappointment. So rather than saying, I will do one practice essay and then feeling like crap when you don't get it done in 2 hours, it's a lot better to say, I'll spend an hour writing a practice essay because I don't necessarily have to finish writing it, right? I've already achieved my task by simply spending an hour on it. Another time management strategy that you can use is called the Pomodoro Technique. It's a really great tool to help you focus better when studying. It's a structured series of shorter periods of focus, which builds in time for your brain to take a break. So the general structure is, if you just have a look on the bottom here, is select a single task that you're going to focus on. Can be any of these, right? Set a timer for 25 minutes and work continuously until the timer goes off. I would suggest buying an egg timer, because I've done it with my phone before and it always traps me into going on to Instagram or TikTok. Once you've worked productively for 25 minutes, take a 5-minute break. You can walk around, take a snack, relax. Try not to go on your phone, because it's never just one TikTok. And then if you complete more than 4 Pomodoros, then you can take a longer break, 20 to 30 minutes. But what's really better than any of that time management stuff is considering your priorities. The most important way you can do this is asking yourself, what's one important thing that I can do today that's going to have the most impact on my ADA? So I'm asking you now, put it in the chat for me. What's one thing you can do today that will help you prepare effectively for exams? I'll give you 30 seconds. If not, it might be a question you have to think about a bit longer.
Revision.
Love that.
Love that. Creating realistic goals and tasks, allocating a good 2 hours for studying every day.
Love that. Have a think about it if you're still wondering. 1 Pomodoro, of Edrolo each day. I love that. So just remember, on Edrolo, at the end of each lesson, you can self-reflect using the 1 to 5 scale. This is a good tip if ever you feel overwhelmed, and it probably will happen and it's normal, and you're wondering, what is that one thing that I'm supposed to do or I can do? Have a look at your syllabus or your study planner on Edrolo with your recorded self-reflections, and start on the ones where you've given yourself a red rating or a 1 or a 2. Then try to move them up to a 3. And remember, you can always start small. So start with a 2-mark exam question. Use flashcards. Create a mind map without any notes. Why am I suggesting that you start on your reds or your 1 and 2 self-reflections? This is where the most growth is going to happen. There's no point starting on a concept or a topic where you've given yourself a 5, because you'd already get the mark for that. It feels good, but it's a bit of a time waster.
So team, there's been a bucket ton that we've gone through today in this half-hour period. We have talked about how you can plan your time using your schedule and that Pomodoro technique to really maximize your outcomes. We've looked at studying effectively with proven learning techniques. So which way you decide to go with this. And these are, chunking. So bringing all of your information together into meaningful pieces. Active recall. So getting that information from your brain into your working memory. And one quick tip on that one, that could be flashcards all around the house that your grown-ups at home are testing you on, that you're testing yourself on. It could be mind maps, it could be flow charts, it could be anything, but anything that's going to increase the likelihood of your active recall and therefore lead to that spaced repetition is an absolute win. You've got Edrolo here to support you as well. Bookmarks, and that is in each video. You've got the little chunks. I would honestly suggest save those bookmarks, but also create a chat with your mates. So you've got your normal group chats on whatever platform you use, but create a PDHPE chat, create a biology chat and a chemistry chat. That way you can actually send each other chunks to bookmark and support each other on those subjects when you've got any issues. You've got your self ratings to really focus in and hone in on where you need to go. You've got the videos as well. And you've got these practice questions. So there's so many different things that are here to support you. And just as a reminder, if you are a year 11 student, these are all the subjects that Edrolo has to offer. And if you're a year 12 student, you have all of these ones. So if there's something there that you feel could be really beneficial or helpful, but you currently don't have it at school, go to your teacher. Ask them to reach out to the through the help desk on the Edrolo website, and we'll be able to definitely look into there to be able to support you to get the best that you can or the best outcome you can when it comes to trials and your end of year exams. But team, what's really important is that you keep taking those breaks, those 5-minute breaks for 25 minutes of work. You help each other out, you look out for your mates, and from us, all the best for your exams. So thank you so much. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. Yeah, so I think that's a really tough one, Liv, that there's all of this content to remember, and that can be a really difficult thing in a 1-week period. One thing that I'd actually suggest, and thinking about it kind of goes into chunking, but it's a little bit different, is this thing called the method of loci or loci. And what that does is it's all about linking the information you've got in a story form of a way that you're going to remember. So let's just say you've got your essay and the topic sentence is all about the way that I'm just going to go to Romeo and Juliet just because I've got that in my head. So let's just say topic sentence is talking about the impact of the feud between the two families. What I'll do is I would have a path in my head, something that is very common to me that I do every day. And that could be walking through the house. So possibly for that topic sentence talking about the feud of the family, in my head, the story I'm creating is I get to my front door and I can see the Capulets and the Montagues fighting. So straight away, I know that's my topic sentence. I then go to open my door, I go inside, and let's just say the next sentence I want to talk about Romeo. So I see Romeo there sitting on the soundbar for my TV. I then want to talk about something else, or the next step in that paragraph, and maybe that is to do with a vial of poison. And I say, oh, I see a vial of poison that's on my table. So it'd be finding a way to be able to link through that means of creating a story of a path that you commonly take, and then linking something from maybe that teal structure or whatever structure you're using to that story. But it's the method of loci, and that's something you can definitely Google a bit more. I hope that's helped on that side. We've got, if you'd like any clarification, Liv, please just write again in the chat or let me know if you think that's something that could work for you. All good. Thanks, Natalia. I can see as well. And Steph might chime in at some parts as well. But team, we've got, so how long should you study each day? And I think that's a bit of a tough one. It comes down to a bit of a personal base, what I would really do is thinking about, and Steph, if you think differently, please let me know.
Okay.
But if you got your trial in 3 weeks' time or 4 weeks' time, you'd want to make sure or have your goal of everything you want done by that date. And then say 1 week out, what do you want to have done before then? 2 weeks out, what you want to have done before then? 3 weeks out, and so on. And that way you can actually map it. So an example of that could be, before my PDHP exam, I want to have attempted 5 trial exams. So if I'm doing 2 exams a week for that subject, then that means that 1 week out, I would need to do 2. Next week out, I'd need to do 2. The next week out, I'd need to do 1. And then to be able to successfully do those, maybe I want to do my notes or have my notes fully complete an extra week out from that. So it'd be backwards mapping for the way of what do you see success as, and then being able to set up that base and a bit of a strategy for where you could go from that point. Is there anything from that one you'd like to add, Steph, or do you think that might be a way to go?
I think that sounds pretty good. I think it just, yeah, like you said, it all comes down to prioritization and that backward mapping to make sure that you're allowing yourself enough time, so that you don't get down to those panicky cramming moments.
Definitely, which they're not fun, are they?
No,
Those panicky
they're not
moments.
fun.
They're not fun at all. So that was Alicia's, and then
I think that was kind of the last question, unless anyone else has anything else. Lots of people just saying thanks so much, that it was really helpful. So
perfect. Awesome. Well, team, thank you so much for joining Steph and I today. We really enjoyed being able to speak to you about a few proven techniques that we've seen our students use and have really got the most out of their studies with as well. So all the best for your trials. Trust your gut and you will be sweet.
yeah. Good luck, everyone. Take care. Make sure you're looking after yourselves as well.